Last month, I uploaded a TikTok asking for information surrounding the upcoming referendum on family and care, which is due to take place on the 8th of March. Currently, social media is rife with misinformation, and I wanted credited sources. What I was not expecting was the amount of hysteria, scepticism, and blatant fear-mongering that took place in my comment section. One commenter who claimed this referendum was so that they could take away child benefit, when I asked what his source was, he said, "My head." I was determined to not let user 4712901 sway my decision. The first place I went was the Electoral Commission website. This gave clear, concise information on what the referendum is and what we are voting for. I listened to debates on the radio where they are legally obliged to give equal airtime to each side of the debate. I listened to podcasts and read articles. I wanted to avoid short-form content because it does not provide enough context. A few of my questions were still left unanswered, so I asked the National Women's Council.
What is the referendum about in your simplest words?
Okay, so the referendum there's two votes in it. One is about widening the definition of the family, so it's not only families based on marriage. And the second one is about including a provision to recognise care. So it's about putting a value of care into our constitution. And that vote also takes out this clause that's called the Women in the Home clause, that talks about a woman's life in the home and her duties within the home. And that's seen as pretty sexist and outdated, and it's going to be replaced by this value on care.
Why is the National Women's Council encouraging a yes vote?
Well, we think it's really important that all families are recognised, because right now, if you're a child in an unmarried couple, an unmarried family, you're not recognised in the Constitution. And we think over 40% of children are born into unmarried families. So it's really important that lone parents, unmarried couples, are included in this definition. So that's really important in terms of voting yes. And then the second thing is we want to see that sexist clause out of the Constitution. We don't want women and girls' lives described only in terms of what they do at home. And we also see a place for boys and men in their homes and caring. So it's really important to get that out, and let's include this new positive piece about recognising care, because we all give and receive care in our lives.
Who spearheaded this campaign and why is it taking place now?
This has been a long campaign, but probably it's taken place now because there was a citizens' assembly. So this is where 100 citizens came together and they made recommendations to government. Following that, then the government brought forward legislation. But this has been a campaign since 1937, when women opposed this going into the Constitution. So it's been a long campaign. So now we have the opportunity of taking the piece out. And also so many groups and parents of lone parents have campaigned to get the piece on the family change, to widen it. So these are two really long campaigns. It's happening now, and now is the opportunity to get this out.
Has the current wording in the Constitution affected anyone, and how?
Yeah, absolutely. We know, for example, in terms of the definition of the family based on marriage, that's made it very difficult for many unmarried couples to be able to access things like payments. So we've just seen a recent case where a man whose partner died and he was trying to access the widow's pension, and he had to go to court to try and do it. And the judge said these changes in the Constitution are really important because it brings absolute clarity to the definition of the family and needing to widen it beyond marriage. It affects one-parent families and unmarried couples in their everyday lives. And the second one, in terms of this Women in the Home clause, first of all, it was put into the Constitution by De Valera and Archbishop McQuaid. So it was put in at a time where women's lives are very controlled by the Catholic Church. It came in at the same time as things like the marriage bar to stop women from working when they got married, the Juries Act so that women couldn't be on juries, and then this was followed by this piece in the Constitution. Thousands of women campaigned against it at the time, but unfortunately it's there. And it has really impacted, because by saying a woman's life is primarily in her home, it was very difficult for women to be in lots of different places. So still now in Ireland, we only have about 27% of our Dáil made up of women, or of our local government. So there's been huge barriers that have had to have big campaigns to move and to shift, but we don't have equality yet. And I think the putting in the provision on care, we know that unless we really tackle the care issue, there'll never be equality for women, because women do the vast majority of care work and care in the home. And that means then that it's really hard to participate in many other things, not just work, but it could be politics, it could be participating in communities, it could be participating in sport. So what that article did was it underpinned underpinned all that legislation and policy. It's not the reality of women's lives. So by taking it out, you're reflecting the reality. You're saying that also men have a role in these things, which I think is really important, particularly for dads and for young dads who are playing that care role now. So it recognises their role.
Some stay-at-home mothers have said the current wording recognises their contribution in the home as invaluable. What would you say to them?
Well, it's been in our constitution for 87 years and it's never provided any positive support for women who have been in the home caring. It's been tried and tested in the courts. It's never, because it was never intended to do that. It was always intended to limit women's lives only being in the home. But it has had negative consequences. It gave a get-out clause to governments not to provide supports for care. That's behind why we don't have proper state support for childcare, for elder care, and why it's so expensive in Ireland, because the state never really got involved in providing it.
Will this have any practical implications on benefits, children's allowance or care allowance?
No, the practical implication of this is by putting in place this provision on care, we believe in the National Women's Council and I think many other organisations who are campaigning for a yes vote, by putting in this recognition on care, it opens up the space to say to government, right, you now need to put in much stronger supports for carers, for disabled people, for parents in terms of leave. By putting this into the Constitution, it's about widening those supports and making it better. It absolutely doesn't negatively affect any current support. In fact, the opposite. There'd be an even stronger argument now if this is a yes vote and if we put in this piece on care. There'd be a much stronger argument for supporting women who are caring for their children at home, or for looking for paid leave. And Ireland, is one of the worst countries in terms of what we provide for paid parents' leave.
Will it affect custody?
No, there's no issue about that because there is laws and legislation that cover all of the aspects of family law. So what this will do is it will extend the definition of the family, so it's not only based on marriage, so it'll be inclusive, but it's not going to affect those other sort of pieces of law. It can only help support one-parent families and families.
What is a durable relationship?
Well, the government have said that a durable relationship is something that's long-lasting. I think the most important piece about this durable relationship is this is the wording that gives a way to widen the definition of families. And what's most important from our perspective is that it will include one-parent families, it will include unmarried couples. I don't believe that it's right that we say to children, your family isn't a real family because you're born into an unmarried family.
How are you tackling misinformation and fear-mongering surrounding this referendum?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, in the one place we have this electoral commission, so everybody should be receiving these booklets now from the electoral commission, which is an independent source of information, and that's going to every household. So I think that's going to be important. For us in the National Women's Council, what we're really doing, and with all the groups that we're working with on this, one-parent families, carers organisations, children's organisations, we're very much amplifying the personal experience and the personal stories. In other words, lone parents talking about what this means to them and really bringing it back to what is the real impact of both of these votes. What will be the impact and how do people feel about them? And that's really important. It's important that we talk about the personal experience. And for the Women's Council, that's really important, that we ground things in women's experience. We can't combat all the misinformation out there, but what we can do is say very clearly, this is the impact on women, this is the impact on children. And we also believe this will be the positive impact on Irish society.